Recently, the Environmental Protection Agency released a statement indicating that they are allowing for the deregulation of the coal industry and the way that coal power plants dispose of coal ash. Now, these are Obama-era protections meant to protect our drinking water from toxic coal ash. But the Trump administration, and especially Scott Pruitt, who runs the EPA or is the head of the EPA, didn't like those regulations and decided that maybe it's up to the states to decide what those laws should be. So according to reports, the Environmental Protection Agency will scrap these Obama-era rules governing coal ash disposal. So the changes would provide companies with annual compliance cost savings of $100 million. So of course, I mean, look, of course they want to cut corners and save a ton of money, $100 million. Now, coal-fired power plants in the United States produce around 140 million tons of coal ash per year. The waste is usually started in wet ponds, almost half of which operate without liners and other safeguards meant to prevent chemicals from seeping into groundwater. So if you want to know how damaging that is to our health and especially for children, an EPA study from 2010 showed that people living within 1 mile of unlined coal ash ponds can have a 1 in 50 risk of cancer, more than 2,000 times higher than what the EPA considers acceptable. And it's as hazardous as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. And when it comes to children, there are about 1.5 million children at risk who live near coal ash disposal sites, and it's shown to increase the risk of children developing learning disabilities, birth defects, asthma, and cancer. By the way, people in Flint, Michigan are still dealing with lead in their drinking water. It's 2018, so.
Yeah, so Paula Swearengin is running against Joe Manchin in a primary on the Democratic side in West Virginia. And I bring her up only because she often talks about how it's not too much to ask for to have jobs and not to poison our kids. And that's the conundrum that the Republican Party seems to constantly put you in. You're either gonna have hot jobs and we're gonna poison your kids, or we're not gonna poison your kids, but you're not gonna have any jobs. I think we can do better. I'm positive we can do better. So for example, coal creates 160,000 jobs in the country. That's how many there are in the coal industry. Solar has 260,000 jobs, far more. And solar doesn't poison your kids. So it's one option. But in terms of what we should do in this case, so they do these unlined coal ash ponds. And I asked Joe Manchin, he was nice enough to come on for an interview. We had an interesting conversation, but I asked him about his donors. One of his donors has been brought up for leaking into ponds and streams. And he helped to deregulate leaking into ponds and streams. And he said, oh, I don't know who my donors are. Okay,
come on.
I mean, that's just one example, but all these politicians are like, oh, golly gee, did I help deregulate these industries? And look, at one point, in this particular article that I was reading, they were saying, it's possible that it'll leak into the groundwater. If it's unlined and you put it in a pond, of course it'll leak into the groundwater, of course it will. And so that's why you have the results that you have. Does anybody want to live in an area that has all this arsenic, lead, selenium, that is so damaging, birth defects, etc., they have it at rates 2,000 times the rate of what is considered acceptable? You want your kids living in that area? So when they say, oh, don't worry, we'll just give all the breaks to the corporations, it'll trickle down on you. Sometimes what trickles down on you is arsenic.
Right, exactly. And the whole point of the government, and this is always the philosophical debate that people have regarding the role of the government. The main role is to protect the citizens, right? And the Trump administration, especially when it comes to deregulating environmental protections, does the exact opposite of protecting us. These environmental regulations weren't put in place as a form of government overreach. It was put in place, or they were put in place, to protect our drinking water, to protect our environment as a whole, to at least try to slow down some of the damage that we've already done to the planet. And this is a situation that's going to affect all of us. This is groundwater, this is drinking water. why would anyone think that it's a good idea to deregulate an industry so they can make more money and cut more corners and simultaneously destroy the drinking water in certain parts of the country? It's insane. And so, when the Trump administration, and when Trump specifically talks about how he's looking out for the little guy, he's never looking out for the little guy, never, never. First of all, he wants to undo anything that Obama has done because he has held a grudge and will not let it go. But more importantly, when it comes to other members of his administration and other players in the right wing, all they care about is their donors. They probably even believe that climate change is something that is real and man-made, but it doesn't matter. As long as they're getting paid by certain industries, they are going to do whatever it takes to deregulate and serve them as opposed to Americans.
One last quote from Paula Swearengin, and we'll have her links down below so you can check her out if you're interested, if you're in West Virginia in particular. She said, if someone else poisoned our waters and poisoned our kids this way, we'd go to war over it. But we let corporations do it because they donate to politicians. It's crazy. We got to change it. You just watched a video by the Young Turks, the home of the revolution. If you'd like to get the full show, come join us and become a member. tytnetwork.com/join.